Hey everybody, Steve Bellman here. Thanks for joining me. Hey, today I'm happy to announce that I'm starting a new video series and it's called Mastering Rhythm. And it's just what it says. We're going to learn how to count rhythms. And it's going to be a multi-video presentation. So there will probably be between 8 or 10 videos. And we're going to start very simply and we're going to get more complex into 16th notes and triplets. So basically, we'll start with, what is a time signature? What do measures represent? What are beats? And then we'll get into whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, and again, eventually 16th notes and triplets. So we're going to cover the whole range of rhythm. And we're going to use the Western way of counting, so the number system. Now, this is not the best system to use. It's not better than any other system. There's all sorts of counting systems that are just fine. For my rhythm study classes, I use South Indian way of counting, which are syllables, takadimi, takite, and so forth. But I like the number system because when you're learning to read, it helps you to know where the beats are in the measure, 1, 2, 3, 4, but it also lets you know the subdivision of the beat, whether it's one end, two end, or one E end, a two E end, and so forth. So we will learn the number system, but feel free eventually to use whatever system works for you because there's really no wrong way to count as long as it's correct, right? I did a rhythm class one time where the teacher told us to come up with, a four-syllable phrase for 16th notes, and somebody said George Costanza. So it was George Costanza, George Costanza, So I wouldn't teach that, but, it works. So my point is, it doesn't really matter what you use as long as it's correct and rhythmically. But for this class, we will use the number system. The last thing I want to talk about is using some sort of metronome. And if most people know what a metronome is, but if you don't know what a metronome is, I have one here. So I click on it and it keeps what we know as the beat for me. So usually the clicks are representing what we call quarter notes. And what it does is it will help me to solidify not only the rhythms, but also my time. Rhythm is important. It's important that we know how to count rhythms. It's important we know how to feel them and identify them. But if we don't do it in the space of musical time, then they're really doing us no good because when you're playing with a group, there is what I call a grid of rhythm that everybody agrees on, and that is the tempo, right? And so that tempo needs to be agreed on by the whole band. And that assumes that everybody has worked on that time element to make not only their rhythms correct, reading them correctly or playing them correctly, but also in that space, that grid of time so that everybody's together. So I would recommend finding yourself a metronome. It doesn't have to be this one I bought. They have ones you can buy that are reasonably priced, but certainly you don't have to spend any money. Just go to the App Store, find one that's free. Any simple metronome will work. Now, with metronome, I've kind of changed my attitude a little bit with it. I think for myself, I work too much with it, right? So I think there's a balance, but I think especially when you're beginning, it's important because you need to establish these rhythms that you're reading in a very strong element of time. So all these exercises, as we do them, I'm going to have the metronome on, and we're going to be singing to the metronome. And I would encourage you to have that so that when you practice them yourself, then you have that element. And then, as you get good at it, then turn the metronome off and record yourself, and you can see, how your time feels. So that's what I recommend. So I want to just say a couple last things. The first thing is this series is for beginning as well as intermediate students. So if you've never read rhythms before, then you're going to fit right in because I'm going from the very beginning. And if you're pretty good with rhythms and you've dealt with them for a while, this video series will get more complicated, more complex. So, for those that have sort of the basis of rhythm, maybe you would start at video 4 or video 5. And again, for those of you who've never done it, we're starting from the very beginning. The last thing I want to say is that it's not instrument specific, meaning that this is open for everybody. So we're just going to be dealing with rhythms. We're not going to be playing necessarily an instrument, not necessarily. We won't be playing an instrument. We'll just be counting. So if you're a drummer, if you're a singer, if you're a keyboard player, bass player, guitar player, trumpet player, whatever instrument you play, it doesn't matter because this is not instrument specific. It's just geared towards learning how to count rhythms. That's all we're going to do. All right? You ready? All right. Well, thanks for joining me, guys, and let's get going. Take care. See you in the next video.